All right. So, interesting news just a few days ago. An updated approach announces in a blog post today that Google revealed it won't be deprecating third party cookies. Instead, it's introducing a new experience in Chrome that lets users make an informed choice across their web browsing, which they'd be able to adjust at any time. So, with this massive change in Google's plan moving forward for advertiser attribution, I wanted to take this time and reflect for a few days before making a video, but then I wanted to make sure that we talked about what this means for the local advertiser, for the marketer, for an agency, for local and e commerce businesses, what we should do to prepare, and how do we adjust with all this changing news moving forward. And it also got me into some research, like what was it like over the past so many months? What was the plan and why did they shift? So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the latter, on the actual plan of what Google was doing. And then I have some resources included on in the description of this video where I actually look at all these different resources as far as what they meant for Google's timeline for what they were doing for the deprecation of cookies. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about what it really means for your business. So, a couple key points that I found in the research. This DigiDay article is pretty good. It gives a nice impact about everything of like an overview of what has happened over the past so many months and years, but really focusing in on why Google had made the change. And from all of this stuff, Google made the change because they really don't have a solution that is going to help advertisers, right? The advertising community has been, really, really reliant upon third party cookies as far as attribution. And with Google Analytics 4 coming out and doing event based tracking versus session based tracking and all that good stuff, it's like, what are we going to use in the future? So, the solution before this was is called the Privacy Sandbox. Okay. And if I look up in this article, as this moves forward, it remains important for developers to have privacy preserving alternatives, blah, 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 blah. VP of the Privacy Sandbox said in the blog post, we'll continue to make the Privacy Sandbox APIs available. So this was the alternative. This was the alternative way to not track or not use cookies, but still attribute. And basically, from all the research, to put it in layman's terms, it really is just a simplified way of cookies. So let's explain something. Cookies, they follow you along the internet, right? And we're really talking about third-party cookies. So third-party cookies means you start at website A. Let's say you're going to ESPN.com, and then you go to all these other websites. Well, that ESPN.com, we'll call it cookie A, would follow you no matter where you went, right? That's really what a third-party cookie is. The problem is third-party cookies are being taken advantage of by advertisers in some degree, but also, how do I say, malpracticing type of developers and advertisers that want to use it to manipulate a lot for the negative. So, and then there's big privacy concerns because cookies pass along information. And basically, you leave this trail of breadcrumbs on a one to one basis. So, what that means on a one to one basis, that means you're leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for all these people and all these advertisers and all of these companies or projects or whoever to start identifying you, not just your habits or whatever. It's actually making a unique profile to you. That's what the dangers of cookies are. And the Privacy Sandbox was the way where it's more anonymous, right? Where it's actually following the user, but grouping the users into these groups that allow the information that is necessary for proper advertising, like in-market shopper or in-market activity or whatever, and provide ads to you. But rather than having it on, myself, David, right? Rather than me being able to be pinpointed and identified, I'm labeled in this group of behavior by the data passing through more anonymously. So that's the long and short of it. And that's what Privacy Sandbox is really supposed to do. And then if we look in this article, this is actually Google's Privacy Sandbox. So it had a couple of different types of core aims. Phase out support for third-party cookies when new solutions are in place, but also reduce cross-site and cross-app tracking while helping to keep online content and services free for all. See, this part I didn't understand, right? Like, how does keeping online content and services free for all, what does that have to do with privacy? When I started looking more into it, the Privacy Sandbox was more of Google's initiative to be better geared towards advertisers versus the counterparts like in Meta and Apple. And let me find what that means. Put some of that info of the helping content and helping support while we're maintaining free is really geared towards. One of the key points in my research is Google is playing more of the balancing act compared to Apple and Meta for privacy restrictions in order to offer publishers and developers the opportunity to offer products for free while giving users peace of mind. That's what the goal of the Privacy Sandbox is. So when we look at this, phase out support for third-party cookies when new solutions are in place, that core aim is really geared towards the general consumer and keeping them safe as far as protecting their identity and information. But the second bullet point, I think, is really more for the advertiser. It's more about advertisers and publishers keeping that balancing act fair, because Apple and Meta have taken a more absolute approach, meaning we're not sharing data. We're going to make it more difficult to track our ads. And that really does affect a lot of not just advertisers, but it affects businesses. And businesses, especially small businesses, using these major platforms to run ads, it really does impact the quality of traffic, their ability to stay open, their ad revenue, and small businesses power America and the freedom of what America offers. So I do like this verbiage, but I'm sure Apple and Meta have more. They probably have similar verbiage in their research, right? We want to maintain the actual privacy, but we also want to support advertisers too. There's always that verbiage, right? So if I go back to some of my notes here, here's some other points. Privacy Sandbox contains people's data and will give access to the information to advertisers, but not full access to their individual profiles. So it's still going to collect user data. But the way that Privacy Sandbox works is it's going to put all these different fail-safes in there that will mitigate covert tracking. So rather than being able to create a unique identifier about me, David, I will be more or less grouped into a larger group of these are behaviors of this demographic. This is how you can advertise to that demographic, and I'll fall in. So that's how they were doing that previously, but now Google has retracted. Google's retracted and said, just according to this article, Google's retracted and says it will not be deprecating third-party cookies. Part of the reason is because Privacy Sandbox is not a full-fledged solution. There are some interesting percentages in here. The test showed promising results. Now, this is Privacy Sandbox results as part of their test. Scale preservation. Advertiser spend saw an 89% recovery in Google display ads and 86% in display and video 360. Return on investment. This is really, really critical to performance-based marketing and anybody running e-commerce ads. Conversions per dollar recovered by 97% in Google display ads and 95% in display and video. Remarketing recovery. Advertiser spend recovery was 55% in Google ads and 49% in display and video 360, which with better results for campaigns combining remarketing with other strategies. So basically, Privacy Sandbox helped recover ad performance. But let's not break out the champagne. These results are preliminary. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's more tests that need to be done. We need to do it on different browsers, different countries, different this, different that. So basically, their solution, Privacy Sandbox, it shows promise, but it is still not ready. And that's why Google is pushing for, we're going to keep third-party cookies around, but the big part of it is they're going to give people the option. They're going to give people the option on what to do, right? So what does that mean? That means that, well, Chrome is the major, it's the major browser share. I think it has 65% of all users on the internet use Chrome as a browser, right? So Chrome to right now still uses third-party cookies. And what it's going to do, I think it's going to be similar to how Apple did iOS 14, where it gives people the option. There's going to be an update, and it gives people the option, do you want to enable third-party cookies to track you or not? And we're going to see, once that happens, we're going to see people fall off for third-party cookie attribution. So I don't know what the data was where people that opted into iOS 14 versus opted out. Actually, I'm going to do a quick Google search for that right now. Okay, so quick Google search. As of August 2021, around 45% of iOS 14 users worldwide allowed apps to track their activity, while 55% of men, 67% of women did not. But then, as of April 2022, around 25% as of April 2022. I mean, here, figure a low opt-in rate. I would figure half or less. I mean, I'm just going to speculate. I have no real backing behind that. I have no real research. I'm just using some of the things that I hear. So 50% or less are going to allow cookies to follow them. Okay, so what does that really mean? Well, I think it means that Google needs to continue this privacy sandbox, and users need to stay up to date with that. And publishers, websites, major agencies, major software companies need to stay up to date with Privacy Sandbox. That's one. And then cookies, I mean, they aren't going away, but they'll be cut by half or more. So we can't really be reliant upon cookies either, because half that traffic or more will not yield reliable data. So this means that it really is the same to me. Let's talk about the impact for the business. It really is the same. It's the same to me in the grand scheme of things, because, yeah, we'll be in a little better shape than we thought we'd be, but honestly, we still have to just do tried and true marketing tactics now. We need to play with audiences. We need to know who our target demographic and target avatar is. We need to leverage first-party data as much as possible. We need to bring people into, I don't care if people don't want to call it a funnel anymore, but we need to bring people into that top of funnel. We need to nurture them. We need to bring them down. We need to do the core marketing activities before all this machine learning and advanced algorithmic campaign structures that we've been spoiled by between Meta and Google. We need to go back to basics. That doesn't change, right? So if I were to take in any core activities of what needs to happen, I would say do these. So what does this mean for you in the business, and what should you do? Know your conversions and where they're being tracked from. So I'm calling them conversions for now. Google Analytics 4 at this time calls them key events, but you need to know what your key events are or conversions are, because those are the actionable items that you want more of that directly lead to more customers, more sales. You need to know what those are. Those could be from calling your store, clicking on a chat, engaging with a video if that pertains to your business, whatever. You need to define what your conversions are or your key events, however you want to define that term. I'm using key events and conversions interchangeably because Google now does. Then we need to test the conversions. We need to make sure that they work, right? And we need to do it not just once. We need to do it regularly to make sure that the tracking is still, we're measuring the right thing, right? So that's important as well. And then finally, look at the conversions in step with your main business KPI, sales, orders, leads, and calls. This is exactly what I'm doing with businesses right now. So I'll have conversations. They're actually really, really helpful. Like for car dealers, as an example, I will have conversations with the BDC manager about, like, I'm running a Silverado campaign, and we get a lot of phone calls off of that in Google Ads and analytics for key events. So I go, hey, are you receiving a lot of phone calls off of the Silverado campaign? Or are you getting a lot of Silverado inquiries over the phone to their BDC manager? And, ask for confirmation, right? You can even put tracking numbers too. Use tracking numbers to actually listen to the calls. It's time to do the granular work, and it takes work, but that's what really is going to help in the long scheme of things. So a lot of my key points here is all about conversions and attribution, because from the advertiser's perspective, you want to make sure that anything we have as far as conversion tracking or key events, we want to be making sure we have the right things tracked, they're organized, they're tested, and they're actually working well, and then they're in step with main business KPIs. So like if I show, oh my gosh, we had 100% increase in conversions month over month, I want to go to the business and say, hey, did you have 100% increase in sales? What was your increase in orders? Did you have an increase in phone calls? Show me. Tell me. Those types of communications need to be part of the advertising business practices. And that's what needs to happen in order to have success. So that's the main action items I would tell for any business. For lead generation, for e-commerce, I would say have more communications with clients, check pricing, check campaigns, check audience, check everything. Do everything the way that you would do it, but more. I hate to say it, but that's the truth. You got to get down and dirty. You got to roll up your sleeves and get in the mud. But for any of you, I would start with these 3 points first. And this goes for business owners. This goes for account managers. Make sure the conversions are what you think they are. Make sure they're tested, and make sure they're in step with business growth, right? Because all this attribution is about conversion tracking and key event tracking. That's what cookies are really for, passing along information and passing along conversions and, identifying audiences and things of that nature. So that needs to be looked at first. And once you have that, then you can start mapping out a strategy and a testing strategy. So anyways, that's my long rant. I hope that makes sense. Let me know what questions you have, or, if you want more insight in what that means for your business. And if you want more insight of actionable items you can do, let me know in the comments. I would love to help strategize. I'm willing to have free strategy phone calls with businesses to help and give them guidance, because that's what we're here to do. And that's what I really just like doing anyways. And if it fosters into a relationship after that, well, then so be it. But if it doesn't, that's not a big deal. I have clients, I have income. That is okay. Just want to give some good value to the people watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or things you have, and we'll talk to you soon. David Feldman-Makrias, talk to you soon again.